welcome to Books and Brews Light number 7. And we are here with Lisa David Olson. So, Lisa, I'm leaving it up to the guests on this program to introduce themselves. So go ahead and tell our listeners about you.
Love that idea. Love your chocolate teeny.
Hi, you recognized it.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm all about it.
Well, and for the last few that have involved business, I said, well, you can't really bring alcohol to a business meeting, but you're a business humorist. So
that's it.
That lightens things up a little bit. So,
well, and besides that, you're also not asking permission. You're just saying, what if and why not? And that's one of my mottos. Right. So good for you.
I am a sore throat.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I can't make it worse. Put it that way.
Right. That's a good attitude.
Well, I am a practically world famous business humorist. I am an interactive speaker. I have spoken for 3 TEDx talks, and I love to mentor other people toward the TEDx stage, or to that red dot moment, as I call it. I also enjoy helping people start their books, finding their keynote message, and what's really important that people forget, that call to action. Why did I just speak on my stage? How did I move the audience? What are they feeling they should go do? Mm-hmm. I love to help people find that. So that's my gig. My main thing I love to do is the interactive speaking, because I've been a performer with improvisation for over 2 decades. And I intersperse that with my message for whatever that might be for corporate.
Right. I had 2 major questions about that. One was, what is a business humorist? You may be the only business humorist in the world.
I like that. A business humorist takes the business and the serious side of things, but also invites in that lighter moment and improvisation tools and skills that are generally with humor. You and I could be doing a scene and someone tells you that you are a dog and I am a bus driver, and we make the scene go forward. That's great. That means we both understand improv is accepting a new idea and taking it forward. Yes, and doesn't always mean I agree with you and I will do what you say. Yes, and means I invite that new idea into my head, and now what can I do with it? Mm-hmm. I take those ideas into business, because improv is generally very humorous, excuse the bird, and it is usually with humor, but I like to twist that thinking. So I do use the humor into whatever I'm speaking on, and you can put, I challenge anybody. I can add humor to anything. I mean, the word funeral has fun in it, right?
I actually laughed because I was just thinking that my grandmother's funeral was one of the funniest things I've ever attended.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm sorry for your loss, but what a great memory. And I bet she would have loved to know that.
It's been 25, 30 years. It's been a long time. But this was one of the funny things. She didn't look quite right to her sons and daughters, and they were trying to figure out, why doesn't Ma look right? And one of them finally said, because she's not smiling. So they said, can we get the funeral director to get her to smile? And they're thinking, well, there's got to be some specialized skill to get a corpse to smile. So they called him over, and he kind of looked at her like that, and then he went, shoved the corners of her mouth up, and it was the funniest thing. Like, oh, that's how you do it.
That is a wild story. And I'm going to guess you don't tell it too often, but I think that's a great story.
And the priest was so excited. He was almost turning cartwheels saying, if we really believe in heaven, why are we crying that she's dead? And then my uncle made a highly inappropriate but very funny joke at the graveside that I can't repeat on the G-rated program.
Darn it.
So, yeah, I'll tell you afterward.
Yeah, please.
The recording is not going up. It wasn't that hysterical, but it was at a funeral. And
no, in that moment, it was, because you didn't expect that humor there.
Yeah, my uncles are generally pretty funny guys. So yeah, I agree with you. Even a funeral, you can make humorous.
Yeah, and if you notice, lately, they're called celebration of life. You're seeing that terminology more than come to the wake or the funeral. You're mostly seeing, I am, celebration of life. And what an honor that is to actually celebrate. And you're coming together. The great thing about funerals, not to get off track, but is we drop everything. We drop work.
Yes.
We drop travel. We drop a football game or whatever to be there in that moment. And I think that says a lot about the tradition of it and why it's important.
How important it is. Now, the other question I wanted to ask was, which came first, the comedy or the business?
The comedy. I was in a singing group and I was invited to try out for an improv group, and I was honored. I said to myself, gosh, I can sing, I know I can act, and I am pretty funny. And then the gal that invited me said in follow-up, yeah, we need another woman. So my big fat head got back down to regular size, and I was scared to death. And I did it scared. And I didn't die. And I did sweat in the weird places, and that's okay. We should do things that make us sweat in the weird places, make our heart rate rise a little bit in a safe way, and feel alive and be excited. Sometimes the phone rings and you cringe. Oh, who wants something now? And you look at the screen and it's somebody that you really have been wanting to talk to. And look how your feelings can go all through the day.
Right.
So we should chase those things that make us happier and are a little bit out of the comfort zone. You can stay in the comfort zone, but just on the edge, dabble a toe over the edge.
So you were a singer first.
Yes.
Was that an avocation or a profession?
Well, it was in a singing group in a small city in which I live, and it is ambassadors of goodwill and joy. Think of sunshine groups or something like that. So it was a lot of nursing homes and parades and things like that. So every year is a contest. They're still doing it years later. And if you win the contest, you're in the group. And
fantastic.
So a lot of volunteer hours and a lot of nursing homes. And I've been heckled for my shoes. I've been...
Why?
Because it was a nursing home and they can say what they want. Because it was the chunky heel and she didn't like it. So, and then she fell asleep. So I'm like, all right. It's not bothering you enough that you couldn't sleep, Mabel. So that's fine.
Right. I worked briefly in a home for people with dementia, and I had some very fun encounters with some of the people there. There was one old lady, she couldn't do much of anything, but she was so funny. And every time I had to take care of some of her personal needs, she'd kind of get upset, and her word was bingo. She'd go, oh, bingo. And it still makes me laugh. My husband and I, like, if we're pretending to be surprised, he'll go, oh, bingo.
That's so cute.
And then she'd get upset with me. And the way she got upset with me was to go, you son of a gun.
Ooh, sassy.
Sassy. But in this day and age, it was just really refreshing to hear that those were the words someone used when they got really angry. You son of a gun.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and how did you then end up getting from comedy to business?
Right. Yeah. I tried out for the improv troupe and then got in, and we were doing improv shows similar to Whose Line Is It Anyway? And then it was sketch comedy shows, much like my favorite actress, Carol Burnett. We were doing that type of a show.
Yeah, I love her.
And then eventually the person who had the troupe was moving, so I bought the rights to the business.
Oh, wow.
And we're still going. We do improvisation. That is my bird.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's adorable. What's his
Cosmo.
name?
She is Cosmo, and she's just a baby. She's almost 3 months.
Is it a parakeet? Or?
She's a conure.
Say
she's
that
a little
again?
bit conure. Conure. Green sheep.
Oh, is that a type of parrot?
Yes. Bigger than a parakeet. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's very adorable. My dog might put in an appearance.
That would
We'll
be
see.
nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, she's pretty big. She's an Irish Wolfhound, and she always has to be in the room I'm in. So
Yes.
she's on her bed right behind me in the tavern here.
Oh,
And every once in a while, she'll get up and she'll stick her nose in the camera, and I,
yeah,
of course,
because she knows your attention is elsewhere.
right, right. In fact, I think I hear her. Nope, she's just moving. She is actually 10 years old, almost 10 and a half next week. And the
Oh,
breed typically only lives 6 to 8 years. So,
really?
yep, yep. The big dogs do not live very long.
Right, that's true.
They get a lot of hip problems, and that's what she's dealing with now. So
Oh,
you may hear like a minute and a half of her kind of struggling to get up. You know, she's on medication and all, but
little sweetie.
yeah, she is the sweetest dog I've ever had.
Oh,
And so I'm gonna try and keep her as long as we can. But
yes. And what's her name?
her name is Leodin,
Oh,
and
pretty.
she came with that name. They told me that it means gray lady in Scottish Gaelic.
I figured it was that.
And yeah, and it's an interesting etymology behind the name, because in Scottish Gaelic, I don't know where the lady part is coming from, but there is a word pronounced Leah, something like that. It's spelled, if I remember correctly, Leath.
Oh.
And it refers to a color, like a blue-gray color, that we don't really have a name for in our language. So I know the gray part is correct, although it's spelled completely differently. But yeah, she's been with me for just about 10 years now.
Aw,
Yeah.
what a sweetie.
Yeah. So tell us about your book. You somehow got involved from comedy into business, presumably because you now owned a business.
Right. Yes, the comedy troupe led me into my speaking, and that's the main part of what I do is speaking from stages, helping teams to connect. I love, as I said, I'm a mentor for other speakers, and help people get to the TEDx stage is another passion, because that is just it's great for your credentials. It's great for your challenge to get to this, to do something so precise. And that's a TEDx is very precise. You only get so many minutes. There's so many rules, and it's a really great challenge. So it's a superb goal for speakers.
Okay.
And so then from speaking came my mentoring or coaching, and I've written 2 books and 1 journal. And I also have a card deck, which is a game that is fun prompts that people can play. Like when I go and speak, we do that. Right. So that's also interactive. But my latest book is From the Spotlight to Real Life. And it is tips from the stage. There's a bird. To reignite teams.
Every copy should come with a bird on it like that. Great idea.
Yeah, it's a way to reignite teams, spark communication skills, and encourage speakers. And so there's improvisation within here. There's even a quiz to find out if you're funny. But I always say great leaders know.
How do you determine from a quiz if someone's funny or not?
You're going to have to get the book and find out.
Great sales technique.
I'm trying.
That's wonderful. And how long has the book been out?
Since November. And as of this recording, we are in September.
Okay. Okay. So not quite a year.
No, it's still fresh.
Okay. Fantastic. And what has the feedback been on the book so far?
Some of my favorite feedback, and thanks for asking, is that it's in my voice, and that not only did people learn something that they didn't know for sure, they also laughed. And the humor is infused within the different tips, which are showing you're scared. Why should you still go on stage? Or what are the benefits? Or how to write your talk? Or what's the first thing you should say when you get out on the stage? That is a huge one. Besides the call to action at the end.
Right.
What not to say is also as important. So I've got these different sections in here on storytelling and communication. I love to connect teams. And when you can use humor and get down to who are you, not what do you do, then we connect as people and not as workers. So then we can maybe understand why Jack might not feel comfortable eating in a group setting because he prefers to be alone because he just shared he's an introvert and would rather read, things like that. We can learn about each other and then therefore have more grace for each other in the workplace. Sometimes we're with our coworkers more than we are our family. We need to understand people on the deeper level than the nameplate on the desk. And so that's where I come in.
That was my pet paper wasp flying by my face. It's not nearly as cute as your pet.
Well, you just got to train it and then name it.
And name it. I am dying to know what happens if I take the test and I find out I'm not funny at all. Do you have tips for helping people be funny?
Absolutely. And the first thing I'm going to say is sign up and work with me. Might not do another pitch. But seriously, what you can, if you think of, and I think you mentioned before we hit record, I think you mentioned that you have a writing group.
Yep.
Do you ever get off track and talk about, I walked through the door and I dropped my keys and I couldn't find my left shoe, and then the phone rang and I couldn't find it, and it turned out I was holding it, using it for a flashlight? I mean, these stories ever come up?
My morning was like that. And in the writers group, not lately, because we have the couple of people, I wouldn't say they're in charge of it, but they map out, we have 2 hours, we have 5 readers. You each get 17 and a half minutes or whatever it is.
Right.
So we're not allowed to get off track anymore.
But okay, then you're at lunch with your besties, or or your writers group is taking a hiatus from the work and they're going to have a lunch. Okay. Yeah. So, and I respect the schedule. But when you share a story like that, you could say, oh, my morning was rough. Gosh, it was tough. And then it could end there. I had a rough morning. Or you would talk about each detail. And what we do, at least here in the Midwest, is we add a little bit of exaggeration, perhaps, that everybody in the restaurant saw when I dropped my fork. And really, did anybody care? Probably not. Right. But for the sake of story, we exaggerate a little. That's how parody and sketches are written. We establish who, we establish the conflict, and then we have the out, or the closing of the scene. Now, think of watching Saturday Night Live, or we used to watch Mad TV, or we talked about Carol Burnett, maybe the show Friends. Every episode has that method of establishing who, oh, Phoebe's having a meltdown, the conflict, oh, Chandler's going to help her, and then the out, they fixed it, yay. Every show or movie has this method.
Is this a skill that you deliberately sought out to learn, or did it come across your radar? How did this come to you?
It is a skill handed down from performer to any stage. If you signed up to do a play, you're not going to learn patterns and methodology, probably, but it might come out depending on the director. But for me, in doing sketch comedy and writing it, we wrote our own shows. We still write, a musical about all the potholes on the main street in town, whatever. Right. And so once you start doing that, you have to establish the pattern of it. And that's also an improv gig. If we wanted to do a sketch or a scene, immediately, if somebody just said, if I say, give me a place where 2 people will meet, somebody's going to yell out bathroom. They always do. And then I say, well, give me a sporting event. It's, crochet as a sporting event.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our scene. You and I are in it. And we have to establish who's who. So maybe I'm going to say, T-shirts, get your crochet T-shirts. Okay, now I'm a vendor. And then maybe you're going to come up and buy them. Maybe you approach and say, get back to work. You're not supposed to be out here right now. Okay, now you just established you're the boss. So there is that theme. So I guess through improv and comedy is where I really learned it, even though I've been in plays before.
Right. Okay. You have a podcast too. Can you tell our listeners about that?
I can, and I will. It's called Stranger Connections with Lisa David Olson, and I celebrate weird life stories and strange careers, and every single episode ends with my guest sharing a dare or a prank story. I've been going at it for over 4 years now, so I'm at about 212 episodes, something like that. Wow. And they're quick. It's 25 minutes or something.
Right. Do you do like once a week?
I have been. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly once a week.
I did listen to most of the one with the opera singer,
Yeah, Heidi.
who was singing in the wrong range.
For
And
years.
yes, for years. And I found that very interesting because I myself am a musician.
Oh, cool.
I played trombone and I was playing it semi-professionally, and I developed something known as embouchure dystonia, in
Whoa.
which, if you know what dystonia is, for those listening who don't, it's when the muscles just kind of quit working.
Ooh.
And so for a pianist, and it can happen to anyone, not just musicians, for a pianist, their finger will just suddenly slip on the key like that. For a wind player, what happens is I went from playing pretty much at a professional level one day, and this was on trombone, to literally being unable to even get a sound out of the instrument because the muscles would just seize up. So I found her story of how they kept misdiagnosing and talking about, well, you've got what is the name for node issues?
Yes, it was her nodes, and she even had surgery.
Oh, but I thought that it turned out really to be that she was singing in the wrong range, or did that
caused all that. They had to fix it. And then she met a new coach that said, that's not your range. And now she is picking everything way back up again and teaching, and she's performing. And she taught me a lot about opera, how it's like a movie. And I had no idea. I learned so much.
Oh, had you not seen opera before?
No.
I think most people haven't. And the only reason I have is because I was a music major. And so I went to one or two of the operas that were put on by students in the conservatory. My writers group, I didn't mention, is in Minneapolis. It's in Maple Grove. And so I go by Zoom because I was with them for 13 years, something like that. And so I'm from the Midwest, and we only recently left. But one of the operas, we have this conception that opera is always Wagner, very heavy and very serious, and probably in a foreign language. And one of the first ones I went to, probably only because a friend of mine was in it, and that's what I thought opera was. And I believe it was the Magic Flute I went to. And I was like, wow, this is funny. And then I played once or twice. I played in a few Gilbert and Sullivan very light operas.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I played a few years in a row, I think, for Pirates of Penzance.
Wow.
And it's hilarious. And to this day, it's the story of, this is supposed to be your interview.
No, this is great.
It's the story of a young man who's about to turn 21, I think. And somehow or other, he ended up basically being indentured to a band of pirates. And he's going to get his freedom on his 21st birthday. And that wording is very important because he was born on February 29th. And so there was this one fantastic scene where all the pirates, and I'm down in the pit, looking up while I'm playing my trombone, and all these pirates are swinging from these ropes and the masts and things up on stage, and they're all singing, "You're just a little boy of five, ha 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 ha," and it's the neatest thing, and it's not what you expect, because
it's a well-kept secret, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'd like to say that inspired me to go to more opera. Didn't. but it is a very interesting field, and so I really enjoyed that interview you did.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Heidi is amazing. It is so fun, and just learning from her, and that she can teach others, that's huge. And that how you connected with it because of your musician skills, that's amazing.
I loved her story because I think it's got to give hope not only to musicians who lose their ability or are threatened with the loss of their ability, because it's incredibly crushing. And please make that funny. It brought me to new and other things. It brought me to writing about a trombonist since I couldn't play anymore, and that really worked out quite well. But I thought it was a story of hope for anybody who's dealing with being threatened with that kind of a loss, or actually facing that kind of loss, that she went on to find the answer and to recover from that. So
right. It's huge. And it just, those years, you don't get them back, but that's what also she shows. Okay, I wasted a lot of time believing somebody else. There's so many lessons within that. I believed that was my key because somebody told me. Or I read a story today that a lady was told when she was in 4th grade that her art was not good and she needs to just find something else to do. We all have a little bit of a story like that. In choir, I was told to stand in the back and just say watermelon, watermelon. And then I turned out, and then I turned out to be a singer, but it's all by ear. And then, like with that art lady, now she teaches art and runs a studio, but for decades, she couldn't. She wouldn't. And we always have that. Well, we don't always have. When we're lucky enough, we have the aha to say, wait a second, that was one person's opinion. And if I were to interview that lady, I would be like, what's the teacher's name? Let's call her right now.
Yes. No,
Does she know?
I have a great story, and this is a perfect time to just give a shout out to anybody who loves singer-songwriters on guitar. My friend Lori Lofstrom had a similar story where she was essentially kicked out of the church choir and told, you can't sing. Ooh. And she had a hard time with this. And I met her only about a year after this happened. In the space of a year, she had taught herself to play guitar. She had started writing her own music, and she was at just about every open mic there was performing, which is how I knew her. And she's a wonderful singer, and she writes the most just happy music, There's not enough happy music in the world, and she writes these wonderful songs that are just, kind of light pop style, maybe on guitar. And I think she's now on maybe her 3rd or 4th album.
I hope she wrote a song about being kicked out of the church band.
Right. And named names. She's too nice to do a thing like that.
I call it tithe this.
Right. So, what is your next project coming up? Do you have one?
Well, on the side, I do art, and I grow a lot of flowers, and I press them, and I make resin art. And I just won a contest in Minnesota for the debit card design contest. So I used my wildflowers and pressed art, and now they've photographed it, and that's going to be a new debit card. So
congratulations.
Thank you. I had to beg for votes, and my friends came through. So I'm always speaking. I've got speaking coming up in Wisconsin Dells and Chicago, and more local than that. And just, I'm always looking for the stages, because the energy that can be exchanged when you're presenting to a group, when you get new questions and be on podcasts like yours and get these questions, I just always get a buzz from that, because I always come away with a new idea, because that's the way my brain works. So and besides that, I work during the day, but
and I played in a big band for a few years, and that was something, because we were playing swing music, the big hits of the 30s and 40s, and we actually had a band of devoted groupies who would show up everywhere we played, and they actually knew how to swing dance. And it was just, you do get so much energy from the audience.
Oh, such fun. I love it.
Feeling. Yeah. So that is great to hear. And any advice to writers, people who want to write a book?
Write long and edit later. Set up a time and really do it. If you find yourself on social media saying, I'm going to start my book, what logo do you like? You are procrastinating. Get off social media. Get over to the keyboard.
I actually posted on Facebook today how much I hate editing. So you're probably going to see a lot of posts on my Facebook page today. And this is easy editing. I'm working on a cookbook for rabbit recipes, because we raise meat rabbits.
Oh, I thought you meant it was for rabbits. I was going to say, I did not know they could read, but good for them. I'm a lot of carrots. But no, you're talking Hass and pepper.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's I'm trying to decide whether to use the humor aspect of that, cooking with rabbit, and have a picture of a little rabbit in his chef's hat. And then other people were like, you can't have a rabbit on the cover. How can I cook that cute little animal?
Yeah, but that's the real of it. I would call it a good hair day and spell it H-A-R-E.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's good.
Puns are my thing.
My husband's too. I'm surprised he didn't think of that.
Maybe he did, and he didn't like it.
Right. Could be.
That's fantastic. I think having a special, back to about writing, who is your audience? You know your audience with your book. But, whether you're doing a speech or starting your book, know your audience and talk to that person, not to, hey, everyone, like I used to DJ. You don't go, hey, everyone out in Radio Land. It's more... Okay, I'm going to picture that Laura's sitting here with me and we're just chitty-chatting away, because that's how it comes across better.
Right. And we kind of get into that every once in a while. That is so funny to see a parrot on your head.
Sorry.
That's hilarious. Well, you're humorous, so
it works.
We laugh. We do get into that a little bit in the writers group every once in a while, where some people want to take all the advice, and then we have to go back to only take what works for you.
Yeah.
Only take what works for the book you're writing. And as you said about advice, okay, here's what I think you should do with your book. That doesn't mean I'm right.
No. Some advice is just there so that we can say, oh, that was really awful. I won't do that. It still counts as advice.
Right. Well, and I think it helps us to think more about what we're writing, even if what we think is, I'm going to reject that advice, and I know exactly why. It can still help us get to the correct path for our book. Right. So,
if I was writing your cookbook, there would have to be just tons of sections, and like the quickest recipes are called hop to it. I mean,
oh, that's great.
The slow cooker ones, show him with the turtle in the hair. You could add humor to that in so many ways.
Well, I started going through and rewriting a lot of these recipes, because one thing I've learned is recipes are not copyrighted. But still,
I didn't know that.
They're not, yeah. And maybe I should double check in case that's changed in recent years. But I think
but how easy is it to change one little thing and then it's yours, right?
Exactly. And so I'm just going through and rewording a lot of things. And some of these recipes talk incessantly about gently fry and gently broil and I'm like, how else what is there roughly frying? And so
extreme frying. Boom,
right. I have a very sarcastic sense of humor.
I like it.
So
let your voice be in the book. Let your voice, because you asked me what's my feedback, and the best that I loved was hearing that my voice is in my book. I loved that, because it wasn't always people that knew me, and they're like, oh, it's as if we're talking and that kind of thing. Right. People want that humor. And by the way, if they don't like it, that's also how you know your audience, is how you know who's not your audience.
Right.
I would rather be the weirdo attracting those who find it funny about the gently cook. My grandma always said to gently fry, but I prefer the opposite. Exactly. Or when you are trying to get social media around your book, tell people, well, gently fry makes me laugh. What would you say? Get people to give feedback, because we want to appear smart. I will almost always answer a question because I'm going to be goofy about it. We want to answer a question and we want to help you. So that's a great way to do marketing as well and get interest in your book.
Yes, that's a very good idea. I'm so sick of editing recipes at this point. So that's kind of like, and getting everything uniform, getting all the recipes to have the same exact format. And I see my dog still hasn't gotten up. I was kind of hoping she would, but anyway, my readers.
You could always beg for beta readers too. or
Yes.
call them bunny readers.
And in fact, I have done that. And if anybody wants to still get a copy of it, I've sent out a few by email. If you will do one of the recipes, I don't even care if you substitute chicken, which it's not ideal, but better than not doing it at all.
Yeah.
And my offer is that I will then give a free copy of the printed cookbook to anybody who does one of the recipes, or a couple, or 3 or 10, and sends me feedback.
Oh, so cool.
Yep. So it has been a pleasure having you. Do you have any last words you want to say to your potential and actual readers?
Do you want me to read a tiny section? Because you mentioned that.
No,
That's okay. I just had my book in front of me because of that. So I wanted to, I almost didn't say something, but then I'm like, what if you tell me later? Uh-oh.
I'm glad you did.
You know, good.
The format is new, and I don't have the pattern down like I do with the full format.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to get fired, so it's okay.
I'm the boss. I can't fire myself. I could, but I'm not.
True. Give yourself a day off anyway.
Right.
Well, one thing I talk about when I'm speaking or coaching or mentoring is storytelling versus story sharing. And you can tell a story, but is that really going to engage your audience? So one of my chapters is storytelling versus story sharing, and I title it, Let Me Tell You. And this is from the spotlight to real life. And this is my actual art on the cover, one of my son's ideas. So that art is hanging in there. All right, I'll keep it short. If we tell a story to a group, we hope the audience is engaged, listening, and possibly catching the reason behind the share. But telling a story can come across as a lecture. Some might get their phones out, check Instagram, and see what their pals had for lunch. Others may rummage through their backpack or purse to clear out expired gift cards and marvel at the number of pens they carry around each day. If we build a story, we are inviting the audience to join in the creation of the story, or at least add their own ideas and experiences. And this is how we gain trust and tighten connections. We share a moment and we work together. Stories bring us together and let down guards. They are then remembered, and therefore you and your business or talents are remembered too. So you can have data on a screen, and you can show me some charts, and you can show me some stats, but you tell me a story about your dog trying to get up, and that she's named after a Gaelic town or something. I remember that.
Leodin.
You tell me that, that's going to stick. I relate to the different parts. Somebody sitting next to me relates to a separate part. But to say stats and data, oh, I know it has to be in, but story sharing means that's part of my interactive as well. So when you're at work, include others in, make sure they have input too, and work on listening skills as well. But think about, am I sharing or am I telling? That's the difference.
And let me be very clear. Are you saying we should be sharing or we should be telling?
My opinion is story sharing.
Okay.
It evokes a chance for people to chime in on it. And when you get somebody else's, just like I said about social media, you ask my opinion and I give it, I now feel important. I feel heard. I feel included. I feel like you see me, you hear me, I matter. That's the difference.
It is so important to have the idea of back and forth. I've known a couple people in my life who just monologue at others, and
yep, we all do. We all know that person who's waiting their turn to talk, not listening for to absorb new information. They're simply waiting to tell you their story, which is always one better.
Exactly. So I do want to ask one last question, even though I'm pretty sure I hear the meatloaf coming out of the oven and my writers group is coming up. Tell us a little bit about your planner. I find it interesting because I actually wrote a bit of a journal too.
Oh, nice.
Which means most pages are all the same, you know, the daily information to fill out, but there's a specific reason. So I'm interested in what you did.
Oh, my journal. It is called What Ifs and Why Nots, and it's only available through me because I demanded a spiral bound spiral binding, because I
And
like it to lie flat, to fold it all the way open. And the only way I could afford to get those printed was locally. Plus, I was supporting local during COVID. So all the reasons. And at the top, you circle the month and you circle the date. So it doesn't matter what year it is. I have so many things I bought that have the year on it, and then I didn't get to it. And now it's garbage.
right.
So I figure it's perpetual, like my busy brain. And then on all the pages are either quotes that I love or creativity tips. Like if I open it up and it says, you know, I'm staring at my blank page, I have writer's block. Take your stuff, your laptop, your paper, go to a different room, put on a different music channel. Like for me, I would probably switch from regular rock to either jazz, maybe even country, because I don't generally listen to that, just to switch my brain and the feeling. That's why some people write in a coffee shop. They need that noise to try and tune it out to focus better. If I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm thinking about the clock ticking, that's not doing me very good.
Right.
So go outside with it, sit in your kids' room on the floor or the living room in a different chair, something like that. Switch where you're at, switch your sounds and sights, and I bet you'll come up with a new thought.
That's great. Yeah, I did something a little similar with, I actually have two sort of, the other one isn't really a journal. It's to keep records of your music lessons. It's a method to help you learn more quickly. But I did the same thing of putting in the quotes at the top about the value of music. And yeah, and I was selling them a lot more when I was actually teaching lessons, which I'm not doing anymore. But
well, if you were speaking, you would sell from the back of the room, because that's the common thing that people do, because they've now met you, and so they're more vested in what you have. So that's why speakers sell more books at the back of the room than they do just on social media, because now I know you, and so you feel connected.
Right, exactly. And people are excited to meet someone who wrote a book. So,
right, exactly.
Yeah. So I would stay a lot longer. I might ask you an email about the TEDx talks. Because,
yeah, please do.
I normally I'm not on a time limit, but tonight I am. So,
meatloaf isn't going to wait. So you get out to your dinner.
Right. And he makes a really good meatloaf. So cheers.
Oh, yes. Cheers to you as well. Thank you for the time together.
You're welcome.
There's the cheers.
Perfect.